Let's go out right now to the Toyota of Hollywood guest line. Shop hundreds of Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. Our guy from Locked On Marlins, Peter Pratt, joining us there as the Marlins season came to an end last night. So who better
Pete,
to
you
talk
need a
to?
hug?
How you feeling, man? How we feeling?
Yes, group hug.
Give it to me.
Buddy, listen, it was a hell of a run. We'll get into it in just a bit, but just what was your immediate feeling as that grand slam left the park last night? What was the feeling that came over you?
I can tell you the exact feeling, and good to see you all guys, firstly. I can tell you the exact feeling. That happened at 3 a.m. UK time. So I can tell you exactly what the reaction was. I lifted up the remote, I hit it off, and I strolled back to bed. I knew it was cooked. The salami ended the season, and I strolled back up to bed at 3 a.m. in pain. But,
I can't believe that, buddy. You had to be you had to be so excited. Your first full season playoffs. You're up at 3 a.m. watching the Fish.
Crazy, right?
What did you make of it? It was a short series. Just really couldn't get any momentum going. Do you think it was just a case of the Phillies pitching? Do you think atmosphere got to the Fish a little bit? What do you think was the big missing piece in this series for them?
Yeah, firstly, the atmosphere was absolutely rocking, right? I think that's the only regret, only thing I'm disappointed about is that we didn't get to see that at home, right? Like the Marlins make it, and the way this new wild card is structured, no home games at all for the Marlins. I think that's kind of the biggest regret we'll have after all the effort to get there. They played great to get there, by the way. Overperformed, we have to say. I think that's the one thing. But the atmosphere in Philadelphia, I must say, insane, unbelievable. Particularly when the poor Rays, not a million miles away, their attendance was like below 20,000. It's kind of crazy. So atmosphere was amazing. To your point, though, the Phillies pitching, particularly Zach Wheeler in game one, was just insane. Insane. Aaron Nola kind of followed it up too. Like the Phillies pitched great. What I would say as well, I think my overall assessment is there were some lucky hits for the Phils in there. Like the rub of the green went with the Phils, I would say. The salami and the JT Realmuto, no doubter. Let's take them away. But there was definitely some rub of the green for the Phils. And boy, oh boy, 6 innings yesterday, game 2. There was a lot of discourse around the umpiring. A lot of.
We were talking about the strike zone. Holy smokes!
Peter, we listen. I do this nearly with every broadcast over here on every sport. I do feel like Miami gets the short end when it comes to the favoritism from the national media. But it felt like I was listening to the Phillies home broadcast with Carl Ravitch, and I know Eduardo's got ties down here, but it was like Phillies this, Phillies that, and then on top of it, the umpires were giving them the benefit of the doubt on every call. I mean, Jazz Chisholm, every time it seemed like he was going down with a pitch on that was off the plate. He was pissed, but he was never getting that call. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, so it's so hard, right? And you don't want to get into that headspace, but I was drawn into it last night on Twitter. I spent the whole 6 innings kind of watching the game through, one eye, and the other eye I was tweeting about umpiring mishaps and strike zones, which is disappointing. I've been thinking about this more this morning, driving the kids to school. I was tired, I'm not going to lie, but I was driving them to school. I was thinking about it. I was like, the amount of human error that impacts these games is wild in the modern day. Like, there has to be some sort of happy medium to retain the history of baseball and the human error, the human element of umpiring, but somehow introduce some technology to get the big calls right. And balls and strikes, they matter. A blown, ball or strike call early in the count, it matters so much. And so I'd like to see, baseball find a way to introduce some sort of technology there, particularly the Jazz Chisholm Jr. one you talk about. That was so wide, it was ridiculous. That umpire should be suspended for 3 games for that call alone. It was ridiculous. So
right, but Peter, here's the deal. If you're going to be a bad balls and strike guy, be it consistently, right? If both teams are complaining, I have no problem with that. That means you're just bad. But what happened, what I started noticing after the first couple of, going into the second game, is that you're making the Miami pitchers throw the ball right down the middle of the plate because you're not giving them any corners. And then you're giving them, if it just glances past the plate, they're calling it on them. So it makes it more difficult for the hitters, the Miami hitters, to determine what's a strike and a ball. If you're consistent with it, everybody can just kind of play the game that's there.
Yeah.
But they're not. So, the Phillies pitchers who pitch great, but they were getting some calls. I mean, I saw one ball, it almost bounced off the plate. And he's like, strike. And the batter looks around and is like, what? Right. And so, like, you can't say nothing to him. It was egregious. And so now you're stuck swinging at bad pitches or throwing the ball down the middle of the plate. And if you're not great enough to overcome all that stuff, you get in trouble. And that's what happened to Miami.
No doubt. Good assessment. It was tough for the guys. It was definitely one-sided, I would say. Game 2 in particular. It was tough, but what I have to say, like, when I look back on it overall, my assessment, like, with the cold light of day, the morning after, Marlins had a great 162 season, the best 162 for 20 years. And I must say, the buzz around this team, last couple of days, few days kind of building up to this, I haven't seen it like that for any of the years that I followed the club since kind of 2016. So that's great to see. They played great. They overperformed. And listen, the Phils, they're a tough team. They played well. I'm not sure many teams can go into Philadelphia in that environment and win a best of 3, to be honest with you. It's such a tough assignment with 45,000 just going bananas. It's a tough assignment. So the Fish should be proud. They should be proud of what they achieved. We spoke before the year got rolling, guys, and we were uncertain. What Marlins are we going to get? They only had 69 wins last year. To go 69 to 84, huge improvement. Some luck in there, a lot of one-run wins and comeback victories, you name it. But it's been a fun season. I think the Fish, just generally as a club, should be really proud, I must say.
It was definitely a weird year for sure, but it's impressive because I think we were talking to Tommy Hutton this week, and he was even admitting, he's like, there were times I'd take out my headset and I'd talk to Paul and be like, I don't know how they're going to bounce back from this. And yet they seem to find a way, even with the heartbreaking losses in the 9th. Because, they had plenty of comebacks, but they had plenty of heartbreakers too. And, you think about Sandy's injury and, having to deal with Yuri and the pitch count and all that stuff. They still were able to weather through Solaire's injury, Jazz's injury. So they showed a lot. Like, I get the people who want to say, oh, look at the run differential. They were never that good. But there's got to be some kind of value in that.
Right.
Nothing seemed to really take them out of this. They were always able to have an answer to when some obstacle knocked them down. It just maybe seemed that the playoffs were too much for them. I don't know.
A tough ask. I mean,
Peter, is there such a thing of making too much contact?
I think so. I mean, the amount of double plays.
Right. That's what I'm like, you almost wish they'd swing and miss instead of hitting it, especially when you have contact pitchers. They're going to keep it low in the zone. You're not going to really be able to get any lift. And it's just like every time it's like a double play waiting to happen. They probably hit in more double plays than any team we've seen in a while this year, right?
It must be historical pace, the double plays. So they're a record-breaking club, no doubt, this year.
But Peter, what did you make of the just resilience this year of everything they had to go with?
That was it. What I would say, like, when we step back and think of this year, one thing that stood out to me, no drama with this club. Do you know how other years, Starling Marte sending rats off on a rocket, you've got players meetings where everyone's blowing up, and no drama this year. Skip Schumacher, I must say, came in, first-time manager, set the standard, and I think everyone bought into that. And I think that really shown on the field too. Kim Ang, I say, absolutely nailed the deadline. By far, it was the best deadline of any club out there, of all the 30 clubs. And this club, they never quit. The resiliency was immense, and they had to fight tooth and nail to get in. It was only 84 wins, we look back, but they fought so hard for those 84. Resiliency was there, no drama. And it's a springboard for next year, right? Like, we go into the offseason thinking there's still some pieces, there's some work to do, but you can't help but, be excited. Equally, you got to look around and go, the Mets are probably going to be better. So are the Padres, so are the Cardinals. So, it's going to be tough. Like, the Marlins, got the 84 wins at the right time where other big clubs kind of fell away. But, I think there's a lot to be hopeful for heading into 24, to be honest with you.
I am hopeful that, Bruce Sherman got a little taste of this, and, maybe that does inspire them to even push further, because, you're right. The Mets are obviously going to make a bid probably for Shohei Ohtani or whoever's out there to try and fix what they did this year because they were a disaster. And I know the Marlins will have reinforcements in their staff, but like we know, like they got to keep it up with having the amount of sticks they had in their lineup. And it did kind of change the philosophy. But if you had like a wish list going into next year, just like of your top 2 things you wanted to see either kept or brought in, like what are the couple things that you think this team could really push them into contending next year?
It's tough, right? They need to address the shortstop position. Like that's kind of like priority 1. It was a bit of a black hole offensively, kind of defensively too. You know, the era of like this free agent class of shortstops that was like year after year for a couple of years, it's gone. You know, you may be lucky to have like Javi Baez or someone available as you don't want to touch. So he's absolutely not the profile the Marlins are looking for these days. So they need to think about the shortstop position. That's kind of like P1. A lot of people are pointing catcher, and I get it. But I think overall, the Marlins at the back end of this, well, they got the Soler issue too. And so they're going to need a power stick. So they need the shortstop needs to be sorted and addressed somehow, probably via a trade. Equally, Soler replacing someone that has that legit power, 40 home run power plus is necessary. Maybe you can get Soler back, but, these guys, they tend to perform really well in contract years. And then the cycle starts where they go cold again. So, yeah, I'll wait to see how they address that. But a power stick and a shortstop, I think, are key priorities. And the reality is it's not going to be heavy free agents. So Kim is going to have to work her magic to make it happen, I think.
Peter Pratt, go follow his work.
Thanks,
on Marlins. He does a fantastic job. We always appreciate the time, man. Thank you. I know it was a late night for you. Had the kiddies this morning. So for you to give us a few minutes, we really appreciate it, Peter.
Absolutely, guys.
There you go. Peter Pratt. Go follow him and check him out. Miami
you
Marlins.
You just like hearing Peter talk.
I mean, who wouldn't? Follow at Miami Marlins _ UK. He does a fantastic job with the fish. Every single day does a podcast for the Marlins. You guys can go watch it on YouTube. Go subscribe to his YouTube. Go subscribe to his podcast, Locked on Marlins.
He actually knows his stuff too. Like, don't be fooled by where he is. Man, from top to bottom, he knows the whole organization.
No, he's that dude, man. He's there's a lot of great guys out there covering the fish, and he's definitely one of them. So we appreciate Peter giving us some time.